Hey guys, today I'm going to go over how I got started in real estate investing. I'm going to give you all the numbers, all the details about when I bought my first investment property. The reason I'm being so transparent is to help motivate other people who may be on the fence about real estate investing so that you know this is a real possibility to invest in real estate. And it's really not that complicated, especially because when I started, I had no clue what I was doing. All right, so let's get right into it. I want to give you a little background about me because it kind of leads up to why I kind of did the things that I did. Straight out of high school, I knew that I wanted to invest in real estate. I like the idea of owning properties and collecting rent. You really don't have to do a lot of work. All you need to do is own the assets and have good management, which is something you'll find out later. But I just love the concept that I could just own property and generate income. That idea was in my head. I didn't know any details or specifically what I should do. I didn't know how to buy a house. I didn't know any of this stuff. I just knew that I wanted to rent out properties and make money. I joined the Army in 2006, which was straight out of high school for me. This is at the height of the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War. I went through basic training, through AIT, and eventually I get sent to my first duty station, which was in Mannheim, Germany. From there, I get deployed to Iraq. I'm there for 15 months. My deployment was from 2007 to December 2008, I believe. So it was a really long deployment. So I was a little frustrated when I was in Germany, and I probably didn't appreciate it as much as I should because Germany's freaking awesome. But I wanted to get back to the United States and start investing in real estate and doing some other things that I wanted to do that it's hard in a different country. Shortly after my deployment and I come back to Germany a couple months later, I get sent back to the United States. I get sent to Fort Hood, Texas. The first couple weeks that I landed at Fort Hood, I was driving around looking at neighborhoods. I was on the internet looking at houses, all kinds of properties. I didn't even know what I was doing. All I knew in my head was that I wanted to buy a property as soon as possible and start renting it out. So I guess I was doing market research. I was just driving around, looking at houses, seeing what was for sale. I had not talked to a real estate agent yet because I wasn't sure what I was really supposed to do or how I was going to make it work. After driving around and looking at properties, I said, you know what, I'm just going to do it. So I called a real estate agent who I knew also owned a property management company, and I set up a meeting with her. I sat down with her. I said, I want to buy a cash flow property. I want to generate rental income. So this happens in 2009. I think I'm 20 years old at the time. And the thing that gave me credibility was that I was in the military, so they know you have stable income, and so it's kind of easy to qualify for a mortgage. So that's one advantage that I did have at the time. Now guys, this is in 2009, so if you think about the economic climate, the economic or housing bubble burst in 2008, and there was all kinds of chaos. Homes were just all over the place being foreclosed on. It was crazy. Property values were crashing. Everything was cheap. So the real estate agent tells me that she knows a family who wants to sell a fourplex or a quadplex. Basically, it's a 4-unit multifamily property in Copperas Cove, Texas, which is considered the nicer part of the area because there's Colleen and there's Copperas Cove. A lot of people like Copperas Cove better. It's a little bit nicer. The property was just built maybe a year before that, and the lady bought the property for $240,000 and was listing it for sale at $176,000 because she was losing money, basically. The next day, we go to look at the property. I walk through all the units. Everything's pretty much new in there. It was really nice. 2 of the units were 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bath, and the other 2 units were 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths. It was really nice. Loved it. Great shape. The neighborhood that it was built in was pretty much all new, and a lot of it was multifamilies. So I liked everything about it, even though I didn't really know much about looking at a property, actually, at the time. But from my perspective at the time of not knowing anything, I thought it was a really nice property, which actually it turned out to be. So the funny thing about this is that was the only property I looked at. I went through there. I said, this is great. I added up the rent, and the rent was more than what I calculated the mortgage to be. So I said, why not? Let's do it. Now, at the time, I didn't know a lot about how to calculate expenses. I didn't know a lot about analyzing a property or valuing a property at all. I just said the rent is about $1,000 more than what the mortgage would be, and I figured that would be good. The 2-bedroom units made $600 a month, and the 3-bedroom units made $650 a month. Now this sounds cheap, but this is in Texas, and in that area, that is very normal. As a gross rent, that's $2,500 for all 4 units rented out. And when I calculated the mortgage, it came out to be about $1,500. So there was a $1,000 spread in there, and that's like the only calculation I did, which is really bad. Right from the showing, we go back to the real estate agent's office. I sit down, I say, I like the property. It looks like the numbers work, even though I didn't do enough analysis. And let's do it. What do I do next? I had no clue. Don't even know anything about buying a house. And we call the loan officer right there and then. The loan officer takes my information, and she actually declines me at first because the property was $176,000, and I was only like an E4 specialist at the time, which I wasn't making that much money in the military. But, and you're gonna have to watch my other video to understand this, but what happened was they added the income, the rental income from the property onto my income, which increased my debt to income ratio, which made me qualify. So basically, she missed something and then remembered and then called us back and approved me within the 30 minutes because we were about to call someone else. At this time, I didn't really have any debt. I owned my car outright, so it was pretty simple. I had good credit also, which helped a lot. So after she gave me the verbal qualification, we wrote up the contract for $176,000, which I thought was great because the previous owner paid $240,000 for it. And again, it looked like there was a $1,000 difference between the mortgage and the rental income. The real estate agent told me that this was a short sale. I really didn't know what that meant, but in hindsight, basically, they owed more than what the property was worth, and they just wanted to get rid of the house. Now, in 2009, when this was going on, it's right after the financial crisis, the Great Recession, whatever you want to call it, banks were getting overloaded with foreclosures and short sales. They did not have staff ready to deal with this problem, and short sales were taking a very long time to close, and they were a big mess. But if you could get one, it was a great deal. It took a whole year to purchase the house. So from the day I signed the contract, it took almost exactly a year to when I was able to sign the documents and actually take possession of the property. As far as financing, I used a VA loan. So I know you guys are saying, oh, well, you had a VA loan, I can't do that. You could use an FHA loan, which is 3.5% down, versus what I was able to do with the VA loan, which is 0% down. And the fees are significantly less than FHA. But again, even if I did this on an FHA loan, it still would have worked. The only difference is I bought this house with no cash. I had savings, but I didn't need to use them. So I bought the house basically I had to pay $500 for a survey. And the funny thing about this is I really didn't know what was going on. So at settlement, I actually got some money back, which I didn't understand why, but it's because I had my escrow deposit was only $750. So when you buy a house, you have to put money down to show that you're serious, called an escrow deposit. That normally applies to your down payment, but because I had zero down payment, some of that money came back to me, and we'll go over that in the numbers. So yeah, a year later, I finally closed on the house, but in between this time is a funny story too. So in the military, you can live on base in the barracks, or eventually once your rank gets high enough or it gets overcrowded, you can move out and they'll help pay your rent. So I actually, before I bought the house, was able to move out. And just luckily there was a vacancy in the house that I was buying. So I actually started renting the house. So I was actually renting from the people who owned the house that I was going to buy the house from. And this helped out because when you use a VA loan to buy a multifamily home, you have to live in it. So if I was already living in it, then I didn't have to move, and it made it a lot easier. Another thing to note is that the property management company was already managing the property that I was buying. So I had access to all the rental income, but I knew that they had a lot of information about the property. I knew that it was consistently rented. I knew what the rents were, and this really helped. And actually, after I started renting the house, I never told the neighbors I was buying the house, or I never ever told them I owned the property, because property management is really hard. I didn't exactly know that, but I knew that I wasn't equipped to do leasing and collecting rent and legalities with property management. So I said, I'll let the property manager continue to do that. They only get paid 8% of the rent, which I thought is pretty good for what they do, because now I don't have to deal with it. So the people living there never knew I owned the property, didn't know they were paying me rent. They were paying the property management company. I would hang out. We would have barbecues outside. They would complain about the property management company, and I never said anything to them about it. I just said, oh man, that's crazy. I think that was a wise decision on my part, because property management is really tough. And unless you're equipped to do it, I wouldn't. So to finish up the story, basically, I already lived in the house, so all I had to do was go to settlement, sign the papers, boom, I owned it. I went back home, and that was it. I owned the property. My property manager was collecting the rent for me, and it was great. Shortly after I got out of the military, maybe about a year later, and I moved back to New Jersey. I told the property management company I was moving out. I had them advertise the property, and a renter moved in as I was moving out. And now the property generates income from all 4 units instead of just 3. And I've owned it since 2010. I've been collecting rent on it. I'm going to bring out the laptop. I'm going to put the documents on the screen, and we're going to go over all the specific numbers of how this investment worked out from 2010 when I bought it all the way to 2018. All right, so let's go over the numbers. I'm going to go over the HUD-1, which is when I bought the property. Page 1 of the HUD-1, basically, this shows you the type of loan that I got. You see up here at the top, it's a VA loan. Boom, there's my name. I blurred out the address and the seller to protect their identities. $176, that's what I paid, $176,000. You'll see settlement charges. This is the total closing cost that I paid, $12,644. That sounds like a lot. That is normal, plus you'll see some other fees, but we figure out a way where I don't have to pay any of that out of my own pocket, which I like to keep cash in my pocket. All right, so basically to buy this $176,000 property with this VA loan, it's gonna cost me $188,000. Seems like a lot. Don't get concerned by that. Here you go. Deposit, $750. When I signed the contract, I gave the agent $750, and this is showing I'm a serious buyer. I could get that money back if I didn't get the mortgage for some reason or some other issues that happened that weren't my fault. Okay, so the principal amount of the loan, notice it's $179,784. This is because there are some fees that with a VA loan you can roll in rather than paying them out of pocket. The difference between the 176 and 179, I could pay at closing, but again, I like to keep cash in my pocket for other investments, so I'd rather finance that in. Now, remember, to buy the house was 188, right? But the loan was only 179, so there's a difference there. Where's the other couple $1,000s, right? I didn't have to pay that, and this is why. Because the seller paid $4,200 in closing cost assistance, and they also paid for title insurance. So they paid $1,200 for title insurance. You see that right there, line 207. Now taxes, this is where things can get funny, because depending on when you close and how the property taxes are paid in the municipality, they could be a lot or they could be a little. In this case, it was $2,800. The property taxes in Copper's Cove, where this property is, are very high. It's like over $4,000 a year. So they collected 6 months, which was $2,800. So that's how you get this total cost paid for by me, $188. But remember, $5,400 of that is given to me by the seller to pay that. If you add up all the money I got from the loan and what the seller gave me, so we end up on line 302, that's less amount paid by me. So you're subtracting the amount I needed to pay versus what I am paying, and it actually leaves me getting $147 because the difference between these two numbers. All right, so all in all, the purchase price was $176,000. I roll in the VA funding fee, which makes it $179,000. So my loan when it starts is $179,000. So some people would say that sucks, whatever. I think they're wrong. I ended up getting $147 back. So out of my own pocket, I only paid for the survey and the appraisal. So I gave $750 plus about $510 for the survey. For about $1,000, I bought this house. So out of my pocket, I paid $1,000 to gain control of this asset. Now, if you think about that, that is ridiculous. I gained control of an asset at the time was worth $176,000 for $1,000. There's no other business that you can do that, and that's why I love real estate. All right, so that was buying the house. Now let's look at some documents that my property management company gives me that'll show you what the rent was, what I made, did I lose, what happened. All right, so if you check out this form, it's a little confusing. The total gross income was $29,000, so that's all the rent that was collected. Then expenses for things like repairs, et cetera, was almost $3,000, and then the management fee there is $2,200. So the total is $25,773. So that's what I made before you calculate the mortgage. So now let's add what the mortgage was. So the mortgage was $1,537. So if I multiply that by 12, that's $18,444. So I made $7,329, or if you make it a monthly number, I made $610 a month from this property. Real estate, that's what you do. It makes money. So that's it, guys. That's as transparent as I can be. I want to give you real numbers so you know this is really possible. And for me, it worked out. Sure, there's issues. Sure, there's problems. Sure, there are things that could go wrong. But this is a pretty solid investment, especially me not knowing what I was doing. If you have questions that you want to reach out directly, definitely do that. I pride myself in my accessibility, and I will get back to you as soon as possible, and we can get into a discussion about whatever you want as far as real estate. And that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks. Bye.